Back, everyone, on OpenLine. Rhori Johnston with you. Our guest, Dr. John Weil from MTSU, as we continue to talk about the Mar-a-Lago case, stirring up a lot of controversy, but it does continue. Doc, we left off with this timeline in 2021. We know basically this year there was a back and forth about documents, and we know it kind of culminated. The big day was August 5th, and that was when the FBI agents got a warrant. It was signed by U.S. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart to search Mar-a-Lago, and that warrant cited an investigation into violations of the Espionage Act, a presidential records law, as well as obstruction of justice. Investigators say they developed evidence that shows that, quote, government records were likely concealed and removed from the storage room, that's at Mar-a-Lago, and that efforts were likely taken to obstruct the government's investigation. Of course, President Trump, former President Trump and his legal team, it's hogwash. The political witch hunt continues. Where are we as of now? Oh, I should point out, since then, obviously, a judge issued an order or agreed with former President Trump's team to halt investigators from looking at the documents, going over them until they assigned a special master. And now recently that has been kind of overruled. What do you know?
Well, yeah, there are a couple different elements going on here. My understanding is the Circuit Court of Appeals overturned on one issue, that the government could continue its investigation of the classified documents. But what happened today is, my understanding, the special masters, almost like he was trying to get Trump in a box, but, you know, Trump has been asserting publicly, which, you know, there's no laws against telling falsehoods on the media. Sure. If you're not under oath. He's been saying publicly that maybe the FBI planted evidence, and the special master basically said, well, you have to this Friday to put any proof that you have. And the judge who helped assign this came in and said, no, that's out of the prerogative of the special master. We're not going to require that proof at this time. And by the way, I think that Trump remained in Mar-a-Lago, which means he cannot be at the hearing tomorrow where he was supposed to be, as I understand it. So there's a little bit of conflict within the judiciary here. What exactly is a special master, and is this kind of routine for something like this? I don't know that it's routine. It's not unique. Usually a special master is appointed in a case that's sort of highly technical in nature. In this case, there are literally, as I understand it, thousands of pages of documents to go through. And so, you know, both sides in this case made nominations, and at least one, maybe the only one that they agreed on was the one who was appointed. And it looks like Trump may be ruining that decision now that the judge doesn't seem quite as favorable to him as he thought he might be. Sure. All right, we'll go back to the phones and talk to another one of our regular callers. Taylor, good to talk with you. Thanks for holding.
Rhori, Dr. Weil, I appreciate taking my call.
Sure.
I see we're going around the world on this Trump thing. I will indicate off the bat that I voted for Trump, but I would not vote for him again, as many of my friends have also said the same thing.
Real quick, Taylor, is there one particular thing, or is it a kind of a buildup of why you wouldn't?
No, it's just the personality part of it.
Sure.
I just am part of that part of it. But I want to take exception, Rhori, to your opening arguments for the press and that part. I think there's far less there than you indicated, but that's not the subject. The subject is this arrest down there, and the way it was handled, I think was totally out of bounds. And I think we have an attorney general that is a spiteful partisan in this organization, And I think what has really happened, and the proof's going to be in the pudding of what these documents really were.
Right.
I think the archives have made a complaint to the right sources, and they have found that to be a good way to further embarrass the former president.
Right. Taylor, let me ask you this.
And his party. Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, because you're giving us a little bit of a good, somewhat objective view about this, telling us that, it's just not your cup of tea anymore, but you still think that there's a lot of politics at play here. And a lot of people, supporters of the former president, would say, boy, it's not surprising that all of this is coming up right before the midterms where, Republicans do have a chance. Polls show. I mean, it's pretty close as far as taking over the House and the Senate, and there are some other key races. And then you've got the January 6th hearing coming up. Do you think that timing is intentional, or they're just doing their job?
It's very much intentional, and it was part of the master plan. And the archives have pretended that all of this stuff is such a great secret, and it may be marked secret, but as I was saying, it's going to depend on what is really there,
sure.
not what the pundits say is there, but if what he has taken is information that's more damaging to some of the people he dislikes or that sort of thing, I can see his personality hanging under those. But now if we're getting into really the secrets that none of us would not disagree about, which are defense secrets, many of those type things. But I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be less in those papers than has been pretended or charged. And that's all part of the political thing, just like the January 6th Commission keeps putting off doing anything, but they're going to come out before these midterms, and that's just going to be another part of it.
Taylor,
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. He raises some good points there. That's, of course, his opinion. And, others would argue both sides, this is a political game, whether you think it's intentional or not. Both sides play this game. They want to try to knock the underpinnings out from their opponent as best they can. However, he did bring up these documents. Do we know, Dr. Weiler, do you know when they say classified or in one article highly sensitive, what level is that when it comes to these documents? What do those labels mean?
I'm not an expert on it, but my understanding is the most highly classified, Gold Star or whatever you would say. There are some that you literally, if you want to see them, you go say that deal with like nuclear secrets or, maybe that sort of thing. You literally have to make an appointment to go into a special room, leave your phone behind,
supervise. There's lots of layers and levels.
Yes. And again, the president, Trump is basically saying, well, he's the president and he can declassify things.
And he claims that, I know that famous gaffe where he said, if I even think about it, it's declassified, which raised a lot of eyebrows. But does he have a point? Was he maybe told something that was not true, that he really believed that the president can just snap of the fingers and say, I'm declassifying this?
I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, I think there's, and he himself said, well, there is a process, but he didn't think he had to go through it. No person, no president or ex-president, in my judgment, is above the law. And that's what sort of, that's what we revolted against England. The king could do no wrong. And we said, no, even the chief executive is accountable.
Which is why, as you mentioned, I mean, this could, at some point, depending on what we learn as this case progresses, what the Department of Justice uncovers, if it's something truly serious and they feel like they really have a smoking gun here, it is then taken to a federal grand jury, I assume, which would decide on whether or not to issue an indictment, which is,
Yes.
This would be historic, right?
And again, was it Taylor? One of the callers said, well, he was afraid maybe the Trump is giving documents to foreign governments. I think that's very unlikely. I think it's probably more likely that he's collecting souvenirs. He apparently loved the letters that he got from the head of North Korea.
But is there a case that
not hit?
Can you get these mixed up? I mean, I know that this was a chaotic exit from the White House and all of that, but you would think that highly sensitive and classified documents would be stored over here in these boxes, and letters and correspondence and souvenirs and mementos over here. And yet, the way it was displayed, or the way it's represented from investigators is this was all mixed in, even in a drawer here and in this room here, which, a lot of people shake their heads like, how is this possible?
Again, if a violation occurred, if these, if these prove to be very highly sensitive and possibly endangered American security, I think there's much easier to argue, well, I took him inadvertently, I took him in a hurry, than it is to say, I certified that I didn't have him, and then when you made the raid, I discovered that, alas, I did.
Right.
Typically we would,
because that is a part of whether or not there was obstruction. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones. That was Taylor. Let's go to line 4. Lucas is next. Lucas, thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, thank you. So I just want to start off by saying I think it's kind of ironic for Republicans to get offended by the fact that their own president, or ex-president really, would make claims that anyone who pleads a Fifth Amendment is guilty of what they are being investigated for, and he pled the Fifth over 400 times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we can all agree, Lucas, and at least I do, just objectively, that, hypocrisy these days, seems to be alive and well in politics. But so, it's kind of, and it's frustrating to people. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's more like you see rules for thee but not for me type situation.
Exactly.
These people they don't want him to be held accountable for his actions, but they want everybody else to be. And so my question here really is when is it, or when do you guys think that it's going to end up in charges being brought, an indictment being brought down on him, where he's going to end up being charged? And I'm curious as to why he hasn't been charged with treason or been told that he's not allowed to hold an office anymore. So I'm curious as to what your guys' takes are on that.
Great question. I had just written down here, John, how long will this take, with a question mark. So what do you think?
I think there's probably some incentive not to do. And well, first, we don't know how much evidence has been collected and if there's enough to indict.
Sure.
But the Justice Department is fairly sensitive, and contrary to what one of the callers think, I think Merrick Garland has been a lot less political as an attorney general than Bill Barr was, or either of Trump's appointments. But probably they would want the election over before they made an indictment, if there is one to be had. The interesting thing that, why hasn't he been charged for treason? Treason is very specific, giving aid and comfort to the enemy, warring against the United States or giving them aid and comfort. If in fact he shared nuclear secrets with Russia, then that would probably be considered treason. I don't think that's particularly likely. I mean, it's possible. And that's why they wanted to get those documents out of Mar-a-Lago into a place that was more secure. So I don't think treason would be the charge. Again, more likely obstruction, perjury, that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. Good question there, Lucas. Thank you. We've got a couple other callers on hold. Callers, be patient. Hang with us as we do a little business. Take a break. We'll be right back.